Good morning, everyone. My name is Vinu Sharma. I work in the Global Digital Transformation division of New Era, and I'm very excited to be with you all today to talk about some of the aspects of the Copilot, Microsoft Copilot for 365, right? So today we want to talk a little bit about the Microsoft Copilot in general, but with the focus on harnessing the power of the Copilot within the Power Platform. So with that, we want to move to the next slide and talk a little bit about the agenda for today, right? So we'll start off with a quick introduction to Microsoft Copilot, right? Talk a little bit about the architecture before we move into dwelling a little bit more in detail about Copilot in the Microsoft Power Platform. Once we have that, we'll have a very small generic demo of Copilot within the Power Platform space. And then, whenever we talk about any new technology, one of the most important aspects is going to be around data, privacy, security, which all falls under the Microsoft Responsible AI platform, right? And we will talk a little bit about that before getting into some next steps and a Q&A towards the end. So with that said, let's introduce the presenter and the speaker for today, Ashish Gupta, who is our practice director within the practice director for Modern Workplace. He will be presenting the session today. He has over 20 years of experience in information technology, working on end-tier applications, specifically in the Microsoft technologies and Microsoft space, right? He's obviously a certified solutions architect in Azure, Microsoft 365, and SharePoint, and he has worked with a lot of our large clients, providing them solutions in the modern workplace front, right, and worked with them on quite a few large transformation and migrations. He's been with New Era and previous acquisitions for over 11 years now. So this will be a good session, and look forward to hearing from Ashish on all the good things about Copilot, especially in the Power Platform, right? And with that said, I will hand this over to Ashish before I come back once the session is done, so that we can talk about the next steps and answer some of your questions. Ashish, over to you.
Thank you, Vinu, and welcome everyone. Um, Today we will learn about Copilot, and we will specifically see how we can harness Copilot and AI in Power Platform. So again, welcome to this webinar, and just a quick point here that New Era is hosting the Copilot series of webinars, and this is the first in that series. So you will see some more such Copilot webinars down the road. So before we talk about Power Platform and the responsibility or security, etc., let's first learn about what is Microsoft Copilot. Okay. So as you can see on my screen, I will be walking you through a little bit, historical thing, like how things started, where this Copilot fits into this whole artificial intelligence umbrella, how it is helpful for the industry and all. Okay. So as you can see on my screen on this top left side, just want to give a high level overview on these different terminologies that you must already be aware of. The artificial intelligence, that's what it's all about or starting from, right? So AI, if I put it into a very simple term or a one-liner definition, AI means we make the computer systems intelligent, right? We are making a machine intelligent like a human brain. We are touching there, not really quite there. So how do we make computer system intelligent? Using the data, of course, right? You know that today's organizations, they have terabytes or petabytes of data in terms of different formats like chats, emails, documents, attachments, files on their file share or different databases, right? So much data is out there, and data means intelligence, the information about your organization, right? With that data, you can make great decisions, right? You can apply some innovation in your organization. But how do we do that? How do we go through all that data? So this AI is all about that. Okay? AI has two core branches, machine learning and deep learning. Machine learning is a set of algorithms where we make the computer machines learn from data and make predictions or decisions for us, right? They make as accurate as possible predictions for us given those set of AI algorithms. And deep learning is basically another AI branch, which is quite complex branch, and it uses the artificial neural networks of multiple layers where it uses a lot of data science to learn from and then analyze your images, pictures, or sound or music, right? And generate the content. So that's a very high level introduction of these two core branches of AI, machine learning and deep learning. And now if we talk about generative AI, that's the term you must be hearing about, and Copilot is directly related to that. Generative AI is another kind of a sub branch or subset of deep learning where it uses the deep learning techniques to understand user prompts, the user questions in the Copilot chat box, and it generates the responses in terms of text, images, and sound. So it uses these core AI branches or algorithms to give you a contextual and relevant responses. Okay, so behind the scene, it uses these GPT-based models, the generative pre-trained transformers. You must have heard ChatGPT a lot. So many articles, other GPT models like GPT-4, DAL-E, which can even generate and edit the images, right? So that's a brief introduction about how this technology is working internally, how things are flowing, how they are connected, these different terms of AI, ML, DL, and generative AI. Now, if we talk about its usage, right, it's great that we have technology. Now, how we can use that? So here on the right side, you see a few different industry types, the core industry types that can leverage these technologies. So for healthcare, right, very useful. So healthcare industry, they can make more effective patient treatment plans. They can develop the accurate their drugs and discovery. They can also create precise medical imaging and diagnosis using this deep learning technique, right? If you talk about financial industry, they can protect your loan and credit privacy because given this all this cybersecurity theft and all, like suspicious and fraudulent transactions are at their highest level. So definitely we need a solution to detect such things, and we can turn our data trends into the risk assessments using all these AI technologies. Similarly, for retail and manufacturing, we can tailor our inventory. These industries are primarily about, how you can sell your product, which geographical area is great, what customer type is great. You need to know all that analysis for your marketing and inventory, and all that is possible with these AI technologies. So retail and manufacturing industries can tailor their inventory, they can tailor their pricing, they can generate different product designs based on this ever-changing marketing needs. Similarly, in manufacturing, they can again optimize inventory tracing or amplify human and collaborate cobot. So a lot of use cases are there for these industries, and it's not limited to these, but there are more use cases. So here, if you see some additional things of this generative AI, so content creation, as I mentioned before, that generative AI can generate the content in terms of text, image, and sound. You can accelerate your automation. In today's world, the fast pace is the key, right? So you need some technologies to develop your things or automate your business processes quickly, not like sitting down and writing a 10,000 lines of code, right? So these AI technologies and Copilot accelerates your automation. You can personalize and tailor your marketing campaigns. So like I said before, with these AI technologies, you get the customer insights, right? With the customer insight, you know that what customers want, right? What industry types need what kind of product, where it's the right place to do your marketing campaigns. So that's another great useful thing. Chatbots and virtual assistants are not in news anymore. They have been in our work for last several decades. But with this Copilot and with this generative AI, now you can give more contextual and relevant responses, right? You can do some innovations in your products and services. Again, going back to customer insights, you know what customers want and you can innovate your services. You can use the your natural languages to query the things, your backends, and get the responses again in the natural language. And thanks to this deep learning and generative AI for that, you can do the fraud detection, predict your analysis and forecasting, generate some creative writing, medical research. So many use cases are there. Okay. Now, we have some basic understanding here about this AI and Copilot. So let's see what Microsoft is offering here. So Microsoft is offering this Copilot thing across its different products and suites. Okay. Here, as you can see, Microsoft 365 Copilot is, of course, the main thing that we will talk about, along with Copilot in Power Platform. But other than that, there is a Copilot in Dynamics 365, in Microsoft Security, Windows, and GitHub, right? Uh, just a quick point on this Dynamics 365. So as I was saying, with Dynamics 365 Customer Insight, you can tailor your marketing campaigns and plan them according to your geographical area or industry types. Okay, so those are some few offerings. Now let's understand the architecture of Copilot. Okay. Now, architecture doesn't mean I will go too deep technical here, but it's important to understand how Copilot is working internally. What are different components it talks to, how it generates the relevant response for us when we ask a question. Okay. So here you see Microsoft 365 Copilot has few components that it communicates to. It talks to the large language models, and acronym is LLM. It talks to the Microsoft Graph and the 365 apps. Now, how do they fit together, right? What's the flow, right? So the Microsoft 365 apps is a starting point. Okay, you work on your routine basis on the 365 apps, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, Loop, Whiteboard. So many apps are there that you routinely work on. You start things from there, and then the Copilot talks to the graph. Graph is nothing but it's your data. Okay, graph means you have your information and data spread across several places. They are in the chat messages, they are in the documents, which could be in SharePoint or Teams. There are emails, attachments, right? There are other databases. So much information is out there. It's all can be collaborated with using Microsoft Graph, even external data with the graph. So the Copilot talks to the LLM to understand that natural language that the user is asking question, and then get you the contextual information using the graph, using your data, and you interact with Copilot using your 365 apps. So we will have a more clarity step-by-step process in further slide. Here, one thing I want to mention, there is one more piece here in this equation, which is internet. Okay, so things may go out on internet, but don't be scared with that term. It's fully controllable. It's completely in your hand. If you want, then only it can go out to the web or Bing services, otherwise not. So don't worry about it. We will cover that under responsible AI. But for now, the major three components are large language models, the graph, and 365 apps. Okay. Now this LLM, the large language model, is kind of a new term for you. Let me give you a brief introduction of that. LLM is nothing but kind of an AI algorithm, which uses the pre-trained GPT models, the generative pre-trained transformers models, which can understand the natural language. And the processes that natural language question that the users ask, and it generates the response again in the natural language by talking to Microsoft Graph, by giving you the contextual information, and it summarizes that. It predicts the response based on that those pre-trained AI models. So that's a brief summary about LLM. What it does, it basically understands your language and generates the natural language and even the code. Okay, so that's a quick summary of this Copilot architecture. Now here is another thing, the semantic index. Okay, so Copilot is primarily about search, right? So like I said, it talks to LLM, it talks to Microsoft Graph, where there are like billions of data and information are there, right? Now, how does it collect all those things? Right? What's the algorithm that it talks to the relevant object, relevant data, and brings you the information, given so much information out there? So semantic index sits on top of this Microsoft graph. it gives it basically enhances the experience of graph. So with semantic index, in a normal terminology, it groups the relevant objects together using vectors, which is a mathematical term, and I won't go too technical or deep there, but the idea is that semantic index kind of indexes all your content, and with that the graph can reach to the relevant object inside a group of object and gives that response to Copilot. Okay, so it's all about contextual and relevancy of the responses, and semantic index makes it possible. So here, whatever I mentioned earlier about different components of Copilot that it talks internally, this is more visual representation and a step-by-step process, right? This will make things more clear to you. So here again, there are some flow here, like how things start. So like I said, the end user starts thing with the Microsoft 365 apps, right? So let's say you have opened a Word document or a PowerPoint or Excel, you are in Teams, you are in Loop or in Outlook or Whiteboard, any app, or even in Power Platform where you see this Copilot box, and you start writing your question like, hey, give me that information of my customer who sent me an email about a great campaign or my great products or services last month, right? You don't want to go click around so many applications and buttons to generate that information. You just want to ask a question in a simple language. So as soon as you write that question in the natural language, it goes to Copilot. Okay. Now Copilot uses the graph to access the relevant response. So in the question, it says, tell me about the customer sent me an email, right? So email is in the graph. The Copilot can talk to graph and fetches that email, right? So it gets that. It can optionally talk to web to give you even more relevant result. But when I said optional, it is under your control. If you don't want to go to web to make sure your data is not exposed outside, it is completely under your control. So it talks to graph, gets the content, and this process is called graph grounding. And then it gives all this information, like those keywords of user question and graph content, to LLM, the large language model, right? Where it processes all this information using those pre-trained AI models, the GPT-based models, right? They understand all that language, they analyzes that, they predict the information, summarizes that, and give it back to Copilot. Okay. Now comes the important point. Yes, Copilot collected all that information from graph and understood from LLM. Awesome. Now, is Copilot ready to give me the information? Probably not. The super important thing is the security and permission. I can ask any question to Copilot, like give me the next year's financial plan of my organization, how many more hirings we are doing. These are confidential things, right? If I'm not authorized person, I should not know about it. So as soon as Copilot receives the responses, the synthesized response from LLM, it again talks to the graph and Microsoft Purview, like is the user authorized to see all this information? So there is a security and permission trimming here. If I'm authorized, then I will see, otherwise not. So this is not something you have to do anything additional. You are already doing that. You are securing your data already using, say, SharePoint and Teams. You are granting granular permissions on your different sites and libraries, even in Outlook and other places, right? So Copilot honors that security and permission and gives you the things that you have at least view permission. Okay, so do not worry, your data will not be exposed to unauthorized people. Okay, so this is a little bit of a detailed explanation, the flow, the visual thing, and here you can see optionally it can go to Bing or plugins. We will have a detailed look at all these things later, but this is the high level flow of this Copilot, right? Now we have some understanding of what these AI technologies are, how the flow works. Awesome, I'm ready. I'm impressed with Copilot. I want to utilize that or implement that in my organization. Of course, the first question is, what am I paying for it, right? So here is a brief about licensing. So before licensing, there are some prerequisites. You should have some 365 plans like E3, A5, E5, A3, A5. This offering is on top of those licenses. You should have the 365 apps for enterprise rolled out in your organization. You should have some other tools and features enabled like OneDrive, Outlook, Teams, Loop, Whiteboard, if you want to use those things in all those places. There are some endpoints or the network WebSockets that you need to enable to utilize all this, which is something not a new thing. Microsoft 365 already has all those things as a prerequisite. So something we are not asking, or Microsoft is not asking to whitelist a new URL, which you have to analyze, right? So those are some prerequisites. There is no free trial for it. So it's kind of a you're purchasing this license at this point, and the cost is $30 per user per month on top of your 365 licenses. All right. And if you see this last bulleted point that we strike through, there was a need of minimum 300 seats like a month before or so, and Microsoft has removed that requirement now. So you are all good now. You can roll it out for your minimum users as well. All right. So that was the information about Copilot and licensing, and now we are down to our core point, like how I can utilize this Copilot in Power Platform, right? Before we talk about Copilot in Power Platform, let's take a step back and talk a little bit about this Power Platform itself. If you have not rolled out Power Platform in your organization, you are still thinking about it. You are thinking, hey, how do I roll it out? Do I need to apply some governance? What are the best practices? How can I make it adopt to my end users and leaders and decision makers? Those are very valid questions, and we are here for you. Okay. So just a brief introduction, Power Platform is a family of different tools. These 5 tools, as you can see on my screen: Power BI, which is the business analytics or reporting; Power Apps, which is great for the app and form development; Power Automate is for business process automation. You may have many processes in your organization, which could be a very simple document approval to a very complex approval or automation process where you are talking to tens of different people in your organization, outside your organization, automation, something, and all that can be done with Power Automate. Power Pages is a way that you can develop an external website which can be accessible with your outside people anonymously, meaning they don't need any authentication, no sign in required. However, you can also incorporate the authenticated information too within your website along with anonymous, so that if they reach a page where they are seeing your some internal information, they need to log in. All that is possible using these Power Pages. Okay. And Power Virtual Agents, you can create chatbots and other intelligent virtual agents using Azure Cognitive Services, the bot techniques, and this Copilot. So you can see collectively, this kind of covers your whole business layout, whatever you need to run your business. And as a connector, you can use Microsoft Dataverse, which is the native backend for this Power Platform. You can use any other data connector to use your data wherever it is. The great thing about Power Platform is your data could be anywhere. It could be in the files. It could be coming in the emails. It could be in SQL database or any other ERP system. You do not need to worry about migrating that data into your, say, Dataverse or some other local system. The Power Platform can talk to them using data connectors. So data can stay wherever it is. And of course, we can use AI Builder in Power Automate to analyze your files and attachments using OCR and all. Okay. Now, with the Copilot in Power Platform, it accelerates the development. So like I said, when you use the Copilot box in Power Platform, you simply ask your question like, hey, I need an app for my employee leave system. I need a workflow to approve my documents, or I need a flow where I can receive the email or attachments automatically in my library. Sure, you just type it and Copilot will do majority of the job for you. Okay. Of course, it's continuously learning, but whatever it knows at this point, it will give you probably 90% of the app or the flow, and then remaining you can configure. Okay, so it accelerates that, and with that acceleration, you can focus more on your service innovations, on your business, instead of just sitting down and writing a big code. Okay, you can break down your data. Like I said, your data could be anywhere else, but with this Power Platform tools and technologies, you can break it down and make it simpler. And some other use cases, like we talked about the Power Page website, we talked about the intuitive chat experience using bots and cognitive services. You can harness the AI into Power Automate to automatically analyze or screen scraping your documents and extract the information, and let's say send it to SAP for your purchase orders or invoices, right? So all those useful cases are there. And just a quick information, like I said, if you are wondering about the recommended practice of adoption or implementation of Power Platform, so we at New Era, we excel in all those things. And here's some brief information, like you can first think about a center of excellence, which is a great starting point for governance and training materials and letting your people know what is Power Platform, how to start with these things. You can get great business value out of it. Obviously, you can accelerate your development and focus more on innovation. So there's a great business value. You can reduce the cost. You can have clarity of the role, like having minimum decision maker, so that there is no ambiguity or delay in your processes. You can identify the risk in advance, how to do, what to do, and then prepare a mitigation plan for that. You can prioritize your issues. And ALM is another great thing, the application life management. So we can plan all those CI/CD pipelines for a streamlined deployment of your Power Platform applications. So all those things are there in place. Okay. Some additional features. So with Copilot, you can access the Dataverse. Like you just say, like, hey, I need this table, I need this column, I need this database relationship. Copilot will do that for you. You can do the query with the data with the Copilot, and that's what we will see in the demo. With Copilot, the users can access the Power App, the backend data. There are different kind of composite controls. You can plan different themes, and you can plan a good ALM and governance as well. So enough talking. Let's see something in action. So I will go to my one of the demo. So let me do one thing, pull this down a little bit. Okay, let me close out some of these screens. So here is one demo where there is a Power App and it has some sales orders. So people can easily go to any order, see its information, like what is the who is the customer, what is the order status, what are the pricing, how many orders were there. Great. We have been seeing such thing for last several years, right? App can be created. However, do I really need to click so many things to know the information? In the app, yes. But is there any other way where I can know the things easily, just I speak or type and get the information? Yes, with Copilot, it is possible. So I'm gonna open another interface where you will see that how can I get this information without going to all that interface. So let's see if I ask a question like, which is the low cost product? I got some answer. The low cost product is Northwind Traders green tea with a unit price of $2.99. Let's see something else. Which is the most sold product? The most sold product is Northwind Traders coffee. Awesome. Let's see which is the product with highest number of orders. Right. So the product with the highest number of orders is Northwind Traders chocolate with 5 orders. You can see the value of Copilot right here. Whatever I explained before, I this is I would consider this as a legacy way. Okay, this is the future where I'm asking a question in plain English language, right? And I'm getting the answer. Your job is being done by your this Copilot assistant, right? So you can see the answer is very relevant and in again natural language. And we can even further customize this experience if we want with some plugins or something. But you can see the business value for end users, people who are not so habitual of or savvy of these apps and all, and they are on the field, they want a quick response. They can simply ask a question to Copilot instead of giving them a training of this big UI. Okay, so you can see the great business value of Copilot. So moving on back to my presentation. So all that is great. We can develop Copilot, but what about the privacy or security or compliance, right? Before we roll out anything, we need governance. So this is what we will see here, that with Copilot, with Microsoft 365 Copilot, your data is fully secure and you are in full compliance. Okay, even with the Microsoft 365 tenant, you must be seeing already existing security and compliance commitments from Microsoft. All those go with Copilot as well. Okay, so it's not like your data is being exposed to other people or on internet, nothing like that. Okay, so here's some few points I wanted to mention, that the Copilot honors the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, and the EU data boundary, the European Union data boundary. That means if you are a EU customer, then your queries which you ask Copilot, they get processed within European data centers. Okay, but if you're outside European customer, then your query may be processed at, let's say, the US data centers, EU, or other regions. So all these compliance policies are in place. Whenever you ask a question like your prompts, the responses that are returned, or any data accessed during this processing, Microsoft does not use that to train their AI models or LLMs. Okay, your data is your data. Okay. Um, like I said about permission trimming, users see what they are authorized to. They should have minimum view permission to see the information returned by Copilot. So that's all secure. And any information you ask, or any data gathered within this process, stays within the 365 service boundary. It doesn't leave that. Also, the Copilot uses the Azure OpenAI services, not the OpenAI's publicly available services. So it's all secure. Now, quick points here, like, can your data leave the 365 service boundary? Yes, it might. And in what cases? Like web grounding. Web grounding means if you want even more relevant responses, right? Let's maybe for your sales or marketing team where they want some additional information from web, from Bing services, then yes, you can turn it on, and your whenever you ask a question to Copilot, Copilot talks to the Bing, get more relevant responses and give it back to you. So it has some value, but there is definitely a security in place. If you do not want it, you can turn it off. And you can also use plugins to extend or customize your Copilot experience. So if that plugin is talking to some internet-based services, then yes, data might go out. But again, it's under your control what plugins you use. Um, can Does Microsoft store my Copilot interaction data? Yes, Microsoft stores that, but within your service boundary. This is mainly to show the chat history with the end user, like what did he ask or she asked last week. Um, and the user can delete that history if user wants, and administrators can apply the retention policies in that chat history to be automatically deleted. And again, EU boundary I mentioned before, for EU customers, it doesn't leave the EU data centers. All right, so that covers my presentation, and now it's back to Vinu.
Thank you, Ashish. As we move into some of the next steps, hopefully this was informative for everyone who's been on this session. So Ashish, if you can move to the next slide. Yeah, so I think all this presentation will be emailed to all of the attendees, obviously, right? And within this, there is a survey link. We are hopeful that most of you would take some time to help us with answering questions within the survey, as it helps us, identify some of the areas that we can some of the areas within Copilot that interests our client, so that we can better provide service and solutions, right? And then, like Ashish mentioned at the beginning of this presentation and webinar, this is a series that of Copilot related topics that we are presenting to our clients and all of you, right? Hopefully, we'll have quite a few more of these, and the survey and some of the questions within that is what will help us provide more relevant content for you. That way, it is more relevant to your organization, to some of the goals that you have, right? And what we have coming up immediately is, we talked about Copilot. We talked about some of the specifics as it relates to Power Platform, but as you may have seen, there is some discussion within the Q&A section, especially around data and privacy and content moving out, right? So there are certain steps that the organization needs to take to be prepared for it, right? Because like we talked about at the beginning of the session, what we are trying to do, or what Copilot helps organization achieve, basically comes from pre-trained LLM models, right? Which uses your organizational data or organization's data, right? Of course, you can also use public data, but the key is using the data that you have harnessed, right, over time, based on your experience, based on the work that you have done. How do you use that data to get ahead or innovate within the industry or provide better service to your customers and your clients, right? So for that to be able to have relevance, right? One of the most things we work with our customers is around governance, is around that security model, is around that data classification, and especially empowering your user base on how best to make use of the Copilot's power, right? So basically, the next in our series is going to be Hype to Reality, right? Assessing your organization's readiness for Copilot for Microsoft 365, right? How do you get your organization ready? What are the things you need to do? What are the things you need to focus on, right? So because we all hear, sometimes if you look at information on the web, Copilot is supposed to be easy, right? You turn it on and everything works seamlessly. Yes, to a certain degree, right? But all of that and the fruitfulness of that all depends upon the readiness aspects that for the adoption of Microsoft 365 Copilot, right? So that is scheduled for 21st, and please look for the registration link within your email, right? And please do pre-register for this session on March 21st, 11 a.m. EST. Ashish, can we move on to the next slide? Yeah, again, evaluate and prepare for adoption, right? As we have talked about, analyzing your existing Microsoft 365 platform and your Power Platform environment, right? And propose an adoption roadmap. This is a solution that we can work with you on, right? So this is one of our offering, right, as you are getting ready to introduce Microsoft 365 Copilot, and especially leverage that within the Power Platform. We can work with your organization and propose an adoption roadmap. And obviously, like we said, set up a governance and the CCOE for Copilot for Microsoft 365 and introduce that into the Power Platform. And we'll get into another session where we talk a little bit more about extensibility within Microsoft, within Copilot for Microsoft 365, where there are a lot of third-party plugins available. Excuse me. And there are a lot of other options where you can customize Copilot specific to your organization needs, especially using Copilot Studio and building standalone Copilots. So we'll have another session around that. But if you have specific customized requirements around Copilot for the organization, that is another area we have been working with our clients to build custom Copilot standalones that organizations use, right? So there are a lot of different offerings from New Era that we can work with you on. But obviously, these sessions will provide you some of that information as you go down your adoption journey. Is there a next slide, Ashish? Here are some contact information. Obviously, this deck when shared will have this information. Please feel free to reach out to us through any one of this vehicles, right? Or obviously you can look us up on LinkedIn, right? New Era Technology, right? US, and you can reach out to us there or any one of our other social handles. But we look forward to continuing this and helping you all out with any of your Power Platform needs. Copilot for Microsoft 365 requirements. With that said, we have another 15 minutes, and we want to open it up for any Q&A apart from what we have already been discussing on there. So feel free to post your questions, and Ashish and I will be happy to help answer this.
Vinu, we have been getting a couple of Q&As, so if we want to take a quick minute, we received a question around how does Copilot protect against hallucination, false positives? Does it allow an option to show how information was sourced?
So
Not sure.
yeah, um, I mean, when you talk to Copilot, right, there is a disclaimer there that these generated responses may not be correct because these AI models, they continuously learn, they do prediction, they do the best job of in predicting the things based on available information. Um, so I mean, it's recommended that when the response is received, you verify that, right? Um, but with continuous learning, and not learning means learning using your data, but in terms of prediction, um, they continuously learn and try to give you more better responses in future. But there is not really any fixed um, um, indication that is this true or false or correct or incorrect.
Okay, thank you. We had another question. Can Copilot be customized?
Yes, that's a great question. And as I showed in my demo, um, you can use, that was kind of, plain vanilla where you are presented with a box, a chat box. You write your questions and Copilot gives you a natural language response in back, but it is customizable. There is a Copilot Studio that New Era has used to develop the solutions. We have also we can use the plugins, to extend the functionality, where just consider the scenario like you are implementing your ticketing system, right? IT service desk ticketing system, and you want to implement Copilot there. That's possible. And what we can do, if let's say end user or end customer is asking a question, then instead of just giving a plain language answer, we can present, let's say, in a tabular format with some links, with some images or more relevant information, so user can go to those relevant places and get more information. So it is customizable. There are tools and technologies available, and we can apply them, keeping the security and permission and compliance in mind.
Wonderful, thank you. We've got one more, so if other people want to drop in any additional questions, please do. The next one that I see is it private and secure, or does the information leave the tenant for model training?
No, so that's a great question, and I covered that in my presentation. It is secure. So like I said, when you ask your question to Copilot, it talks to LLMs and Microsoft Graph, which has your data and security implemented. And like I gave an example, let's say your data is in SharePoint, you have permissions applied there, right? And this kind of forces you to make sure your permissions are correct, right? You have not opened your sites for everyone in your organization, or maybe all the guest users, external users who can see a lot of your information. This kind of enforces you to make sure you have proper permissions applied in your, say, SharePoint, Teams, Outlook, and other 365 apps, and Copilot honors that. Okay, definitely. So along with the data, it also sees the permission that what an end user is authorized to or entitled to, and then gives you that information. That is one part of the question. The other part, does your data leave the organization? So as I mentioned, this is up to you. If you want to increase the relevancy of your responses by talking to the Bing service, remember, Copilot can use Bing service on web for searching the proper response. So in that way, it can collect the keywords from your question, which you ask Copilot, and internally Copilot frames a search query, gives to Bing, gets a response, and gives you the relevant things. So um, this is controllable. In some cases, or for some group of people, you may find it useful, but maybe for other cases not. So if you want, you can use Bing service, otherwise not.
It sounds like it's very customizable. Next, we had a question about when answering a question, can Copilot cite the sources it used to determine the answer?
Oh, because internally it has a complex algorithm. We talked about the high level tools it talks to, like Graph and LLM. Now, Graph has internal various vectors and sources of information. Your information could be, say, in Outlook, or in a document in a library, right? Or maybe something in the Microsoft Loop, right? So it has its own internal algorithm to talk to these various resources or sources, and then it presents the information. So at the end, you get a canned output or canned response, but not really like internally where all it talked to.
Yeah, but in instances like SharePoint and where there is some generic information, right, it does provide a link. And especially if you're using your own data sources and specific customized Copilot, you do have the option of specifying the data source. I just put a link for some of that in the Q&A session as well. So there are instances where it does provide the link, but in some instances where it is using data from multiple sources, you would not get that. But if it is very targeted, it does. That's why I said it is possible.
Fantastic. Thank you for providing that link. The next question we had was, can you tailor the demo on Copilot when a customer has specific use cases?
So demo, like I said, with the Copilot Studio, we can tailor the UI and the way Copilot responds. That is possible, and as I have been using the term plugin, so overall the end user behavior can be customized. Of course, whatever options are available today in the Copilot Studio, or using those Azure Cognitive Services or other bot techniques and plugins, by using them, we can talk about your requirements, and we can customize the things based on available ways of doing that.
Fantastic. I see one
I
more
just,
question.
Jackie, I just want to add to what Ashish just said, and to the same point, right? Using the studio, and if you want to have specific results within your demo that you want to present to your clients or to your customers, you can build your own plugins, right? That way, you can very much target the results and target, what you're trying to achieve, and that is where the extensibility of Copilot comes into picture as well, right? Where you can completely customize it to your organizational needs. And of course, it is evolving, right? So every time there is new feature sets that Copilot is improving. And again, uh, like any other generative AI technology, you're probably seen today, right? So there are so much. Google just introduced its AI services, and it had to withdraw it because of some of the backlash it received, right? So things are being introduced, and it is continuing to evolve, right? So there is some growing pains related to generative AI, including Copilot, right? And results, I want to just be upfront, right? It won't be 100%, right? But it is there, almost there. So it definitely requires some customization and extensibility. So thanks, Jackie.
Wonderful. Yep. We have one more question that we can take before we'll close it out. We have a question around popular use cases. I think that's really what everyone is looking for right now is how do we apply it, right? So we had a question asking specifically around Outlook and how it functions, for example, with mail, calendar, meetings, and how Copilot might be able to streamline and automate some of our processes in Outlook.
So with Outlook, there could be different ways. Like it can be very useful for the salespeople to generate the emails automatically by looking into the previous emails of the customer, maybe any complaints or any kudos to the company. And let's say the salesperson want to send another email like, hey, you sent us this question or query a few days ago. Here is the response. So the email can automatically be generated by collecting different sources, and it can talk to Dynamics 365, the Outlook, and any other Teams communication or chat or SharePoint, and makes a very intelligent, informed decision and write the whole email body for the person, right? Which, of course, say the person can review before sending and maybe tweak if needed and send it. So that can make the job easier within Outlook. That's one of the great use cases. Any other point, Vinu, you have any other use case?
No, I think you answered it perfectly, right? So again, I have to go back and talk a little bit about the indexing, right? So data is pulled from all these different sources, including email, including team chat that the user has been part of, right? Now, it all depends upon the user who is requesting the query, right? If me as a user, Vinu Sharma, is requesting it, the first thing it looks at is my emails, right? What are the email communications that I've had within the last week, within the last 15 days. And my query could be very simple and say, over the last month, what has my sales contribution been? Right. So it will go through your email and look for keywords. It'll look for things around sales. It'll look for things around my conversations with other colleagues that I have had within teams, which relates to sales data, right? And based on that, it will generate either the Word document you're trying to do or the email body you're trying to compose, right? That you can use to respond, right? The semantic index again becomes the key, right? So making sure that it knows of all the data that you have access to so that it can build this model.
All right, I just noticed one more question, and that is there any way to guarantee if users ask the exact same question, they will get the same answer?
That's an interesting question. And you can imagine, I mean, if we talk about human brain, probably you will see the same response with some variation. And here we are talking about machines, right? Um, if it is exact same word, then probably I'm assuming I need to try it, but I think the answer will be the same with the same exact wording, because it will feed into their algorithm. The LLM will respond with the same response, and it will talk to those relevant sources of the data and get you the response. So since it's a machine, um, um, I think most likely the response will be the same. But if you tweak the words, there could be differences.
And again, right, it depends on the implementation as well. For the most part, the data sources that it will pull from is the same. And if your wording is exact, right, it will potentially return the same result with a little bit of with a little bit of changes, right? But if your natural language is different, it might interpret it slightly differently. And you can see this very much within the generative AI models out there on the web. If you go to Bing, or even if you use Google AI and you ask the questions, you change it up a little bit, your answers might be slightly different, because grammar is very tricky, right? So if you're asking the exact same question with all the grammar being the same, the likely answer you're going to get will be very close, right? But if there is even a slight difference in the verb that you're using, or in the statement, yeah, you could have slightly different results.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending, and a special thank you to Ashish and Vinu for giving us all this great information. We will be sending out emails with the recording, and also multiple links to additional information on upcoming Copilot webinars. And once again, thank you everyone for attending and all the great Q&A. I think there's a few more questions that were left. We will definitely reach out and get the answers to everyone. So thank you again, and have a wonderful day.
Everyone.